today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at all of our modeled guidance. It does appear to me as I wake up this morning that we do have basically spring weather returning. Okay, so I feel like we've reached the point where we're going to see another pattern change. Obviously, the beginning of March switched us from a very spring-like pattern that we were stuck in for multiple months during the wintertime into a more wintry pattern that we've finally been able to enter into. Now I'm seeing the beginning signs of a change back in the warmer direction. Hopefully, if you ask me, for a pretty permanent change into a more spring-like pattern. We do get warmer and warmer and warmer every day on average, so it's going to be harder and harder and harder to see any cold move in, but hopefully we don't see any of this winter-like March continue, because there is obviously extreme, just huge impacts that come with that. The very spring-like winter and then a very wintry-like March. As you can see, already by Friday, it's going to feel like spring again. We see just warm air surging. Take advantage of this because it's going to be a one-day thing on Friday for most folks. Where, you know, anywhere east of your kind of deeper south, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region here, we can see the cold front is located right here. So anywhere east of this, we're going to be seeing very warm temperatures, as there is a warm front right there. And that is going to be very nice, except of course where it's storming in here. This is where it's going to be not so nice, but there will be thunderstorms possible with all of this activity, even as we reach into the eastern United States. I think that this is going to be a line of pretty strong thunderstorms here, because we're going to see 70s kind of transitioning into basically, you know, more winter-like temperatures, 50s and 40s again. So that is going to be a pretty extreme gradient in the temperatures. And we see that we're left with a major trough in the east, perhaps more major than the one we saw before that point. So I'm noticing now that we don't get a full 240 hours right here for some reason. So we're going to have to actually switch back if we want to see anything from the European model. Well, there we go. We don't get it here either. I don't know what's going on. Let's see if I can fix this. So for some reason on the European model, I can only get the hours 144 here on any of the runs. So I don't know what all that's about. But let's go ahead and move on. We can see that this gets to hour 240 here when we're taking a look at the total precipitation. Actually, you know what? I can fix this. I know what I have to do now. Oh, okay. We're on the 3 hour. That's why. There we go. So let's go ahead and move back onto the 0Z. That's totally my fault, guys. It's kind of embarrassing. Let's keep going with this, and as we can see, those winter-like temperatures continue through about the 22nd. That's going to be about just a few days from now, so we have about another week of the cold air. But I see that after the 20th, what we're going to see is this kind of rising motion in the east. As you can see, we have this storm moving up just like this, a pretty major storm at that, actually, 995 millibar low pressure center. And look at the widespread storminess around this low. I mean, we have, you know, miles and miles of storminess rising up from the Gulf with that humidity with this storm. We have snowfall to the west and the north of this thing. So this is bringing a lot of impacts to many different regions. And we are left with warmer temperatures overall. In the east, we're still seeing a pattern like this, most of that cold air being in the west, and then a ridge here with this rising motion, and the storm has outpaced that cold front. So I believe that what this is going to do is basically not bring Arctic air to the east. Usually when we see this precipitation outpace the cold, it just kind of fizzles out the cold front. We see the precipitation still, but definitely the cold is looking to stay out west. The total precipitation now, we can see that the northwest actually is quieting down compared to what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. So we could tell that there's not going to be as much storm activity moving directly through this area. It looks more like the south there of the west, potentially storm tracks straight up here, especially in the longer range, and maybe more of something like this at times as well. But definitely these storms stem from the southwest and move through into the east, kind of avoiding the plains, avoiding the northwest there, as you can see. And then basically the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and then kind of your deeper south, southeast are the regions that see a lot of that precipitation. And again, here in the northeast, we get a little bit quieter as well, with a little bit of a hole where we're not really seeing much activity enter into this area either. Definitely very interesting stuff here. Now the total snowfall here, this tells the full story. We see very wintry out west, and then just this total bubble in the east, where there's minimal amounts up here. especially when compared to what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. So this looks to be quieting down in a big way. And once we reach into April, I think the odds of seeing anything in these areas is greatly diminishing. So that is going to definitely be a big change in the upcoming pattern. Let's take a look here at your GFS model. And actually, we'll take a look at the storms here, and especially so we can see kind of your jet stream pattern. We see this big cooldown. We get this rising nor'easter here. This has been calling for this for a while. That's right around the 22nd. Potential snowfall in here a little bit, according to that GFS, but definitely take that with a grain of salt. That looks a lot warmer than it has in the past few runs. And we can see this gives way after the 20th to a very similar pattern to what the European model calls for. A lot of ridging happening here in the eastern half of the nation. So we're seeing just plenty of this and plenty of this, which is really not encouraging cold in the east as of now. We could still see it shift. So we're going to continue to watch this, but we see that cold front in this case does not outpace the cold quite as much. But what we're left with isn't a huge ridge out west, huge trough in the east, as you can tell. It's very flat. As you can see the jet stream, we have in general a ridge that is encompassing all of the southern United States and a bit of a trough that's very soft and encompassing most of the northern United States. In general, as a rule of thumb, this usually would bring more seasonable weather. So it's not going to be like May or June, obviously, but it's also not going to be like December or January either. It's just going to be like March is what you can anticipate with this type of a jet stream pattern. Very seasonable. Now, let's keep going with this. Let's see how long this flatter jet stream lasts. And it looks to last through most of the model run until the very end, right around March 31st, where it does look like we're getting a little bit of a ridge developing here in the east with a lot of storminess rising up. As we reach closer and closer to the spring, we are going to see a significant increase in thunderstorm potential. Obviously, I mean, March, you see maybe a couple of thunderstorms in these areas, excluding kind of your deeper south. These areas see thunderstorms through the year in general. So excluding these areas here, so if you look outside of that into this bubble, these areas here maybe see 1 or 2 thunderstorms in March, perhaps. But April, it probably jumps to about 5, and then by May it jumps to like 10, 15, something like that, 20. And then, you know, we see that kind of trickle in through the summertime. So we are going to see a great increase of this precipitation. And as we're approaching the beginning of April, I see this change already happening. As you can see, more humid, more warm, and more thunderstorms, it appears. Now, as we take a look at this European ensemble model, we see cold in the east. There's no real surprise there, though, because that's what we've been talking about. But then we start to see some warm trickle in here on this European ensemble model, where we can tell we have a negative PNA, it appears, and then ridging happening in the east. And I want to see how long this persists, because we do see this bring blue into the east, but we can tell there's a whole lot more blue and green and even darker purple in the west, and then there's not a whole lot here in the east. This is probably going to look warmer than anything. We're looking at an ensemble model which has multiple members there, and that tends to get it confused, where it's kind of tripping over itself because we have all these different members, some of which calling for different things, and that's when we get this kind of confusing outlook here. Now, I think this is your main reason why we're seeing most of this, and I'm going to draw in the kind of even line there. This is your PNA, and we can see we're going to be positive up until right around, let's call it the 21st here. So right about there is where we see that transition. That's the 21st line. And once we see that trickle down, as you can see, the 20th, 21st time frame, we get into a negative PNA. So all that time we're in a negative. All this time here, we're in a positive PNA. And a positive PNA means that we're likely going to see warmer temperatures in the west in general and colder temperatures in the east. This negative PNA section over here, where we're going to be for the foreseeable future, according to this European ensemble model, would have us seeing colder temperatures encouraged out west, which is going to encourage those warm spells in the east to be more likely. And we saw that on the European ensemble model. We certainly see it here on this PNA chart. So that is probably the reasoning behind this big pattern switch, is going from basically a 2 here to about a -1, -2 over here as well. So that is a 4-point switch basically here. Definitely a very, very large switch, and this would bring different conditions for sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This is definitely an interesting point in the year as we're seeing a pattern change here, so it's exciting. Be sure to subscribe. We're going to keep you guys up to date every single day. So we'll go over all of these changes, of course. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.